Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 736B, and today's date is August 6, 2015, and the title of this episode is False Flag Botched as 4 men caught smuggling uranium in Ukraine. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. The interview with Trey Knippa is now uploaded to the X22 Report Spotlight channel on YouTube. You can go right there and view it, or you can come to the x22report.com site. You will see it on the right-hand side, and you can play it from there. Let's get right into the economic collapse geopolitical news. Now, it looks like we've had another shooting out in Nashville. And if you notice, ever since Obama came out and said his main concern right now is removing the guns from the people, we've been seeing a lot of these mass type of shootings. But they all have the same thing in common. And that is, these people are on SSRIs. They have mental problems. Now, this person was running around with an airsoft pistol, with a hatchet, and within minutes, the ATF, the Metro Police, the SWAT teams, the FBI, DHS, Fire Department, EMS, Highway Patrol, all came at once. Even the bomb squad. And the whole thing reeks of some type of false flag, because this person, Montano, who was 29 years old, basically has a history of mental illness. And basically, his mother told authorities that Montano was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia in 2006. And basically, he has a history of problems with the law, drifting. And basically, this is the perfect patsy the FBI likes to use. And what we're seeing here, it seems like it fits into the same scenario that we've been seeing all along. And again, the person end up dead. They are dead. They were shot dead. And it makes no sense. Now, there are inconsistencies in the story where he was swinging a hatchet all around. Someone said they got bruised. Well, how do you get bruised with a hatchet? Some people said they had a small cut on a shoulder, not bruised. So right now the stories are not really kind of making any sense. I don't think this went as they planned. And again, the person didn't have just a gun. Well, an airsoft pistol is really like a BB type of gun. They had a hatchet, and what are they going to do, ban all the hatchets? So this story wasn't going along the way they thought it was going to. And when we look at this, we can see that it's the same exact scenario and steps they always use. And prior to this, which is very interesting, is that the mother filed a missing persons report with the Texas Rangers 2 days ago that he was missing. Now, if you're going to have a patsy, they have to prepare him. They have to remove him for a couple of days, correct? And this seems to fit in exactly what we've always seen. Now, we understand there was a black site in Chicago. And in this black site, they detained about 3,500 Americans. And of the 2/3 of the arrests at Homan Square, which are revealed, there's probably a lot more, at least 2,500 occurred under the tenure of Mayor Rahm Emanuel. And a 42-year-old civil rights activist says he was abducted by masked officers, shackled, held on false charges with no food, water, no access to the outside world. And again, this basically means they are not following the Constitution. They're not abiding by the rights of the people. They are violating everything. And this is the first sign that we are seeing this. I mean, we mentioned this many, many months ago. But this information that's coming out is that there was a lot of people that went through this. And there was no due process whatsoever. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are more of these around the country, because you have to remember, it started outside of the country in Guantanamo, where no one had any due process. They tortured the people there. They didn't have access to the outside world. And now we're seeing it here in the United States. Just another indicator that this entire society is closing down, that they're violating the rights. They're not even paying attention to the Constitution anymore. Because if they can do something like this, they can do anything. Now, we understand the government is continually spying on the people. We know they're continually monitoring everyone. We know it's part of many different agendas. We know they spy on government officials, judges, to blackmail them. Well, the cybersecurity bill, CISA, is now in the Senate, ready to be voted on. And critics say this will dwarf previous efforts by government to gather electronic information on all Americans without first obtaining court-issued warrant as required by the Fourth Amendment. What's more, the legislation officially called the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015, or CISA, has the support of some major telecom tech media firms, which is Google, Facebook, AT&T. And what this is going to enable them to do, it's going to enable them to just spy on everybody. And we already see it with Windows 10. I know it's in other versions of Windows, but this is Windows to the extreme. Because now they're following along with the USA Freedom Act, where they're just gathering every single piece of information on you. And this is why everyone needs to protect themselves, because they are still out there trying to push their agenda. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse led the way to explain why Apple needs to give them a backdoor into their system. They need to get rid of the encryption. And he's saying, and he argued, that if the police couldn't find a missing girl, which is completely hypothetical that he's using, then perhaps Apple could face some civil liability for not allowing the government to spy on their data. What? So because you couldn't spy on the American people, you can sue Apple because you can't find the girl. And Apple, was like, well, that's okay. If this does occur, you get a court order. We'll give you the information. We'll decrypt it. And you can use that for your investigation. And he went on to say that Apple could be liable even if the government decrypts the messages. It makes no difference. So basically what he's saying is that, oh yes, we don't care about that. We just want to spy on everyone. What he's saying doesn't even make sense. Because spying on the American people is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And if they give them the information they need at the point in time the girl was kidnapped, I mean, this is hypothetical, and they decrypted that information, they have the information because they got a court order. And believe me, they can get the court orders very, very quickly in these cases. So this whole thing completely fell apart. Basically what they're doing is they're trying to make a case of why they need to spy on everyone, and they can't do it. And this is why everyone has to protect themselves. This is why everyone needs to either use different methods of protecting themselves, like use Start Page, that will help you mask your searches. It enters Google and uses the Google algorithm for searching, but it hides where you're coming from. It even allows you to use proxy servers to make it look like you're coming from someplace else. You can write your own encryption. You can use encrypted email services to protect your phone, your license that's going to have an RFID chip in it, your credit card, which already has an RFID chip in it. You can use a product called Pocket at pocketpocket.com. These are just sleeves that are interwoven with different metals, copper, silver, and they're interwoven into a fabric, made into a case, and it blocks the signal so you cannot be tracked. And everyone needs to take responsibility to do this because your private information is your own. No one needs to have it unless you want to give it. Now, it looks like more debris has washed up on the MH370. We see a plain window, aluminum foil, and all these have been handed over to the French authority. But what's very interesting about all this is that the United States doesn't want Malaysia to handle the investigation. The United States wants to be involved in this. And every time the United States wants to be involved in something, it seems like they might be responsible for something happening. And they want to be there to make sure they don't find out any information. Almost like MH17, where they kept everything a secret. Now, Poroshenko is discussing military cooperation with the U.S. Congress. They're discussing matters of cybersecurity, military, energy sector, and they're paying special attention to protecting the U.S. investments in Ukraine and privatization of the country. Because we know what the central bankers want. They want to invest in Ukraine. They want to steal the natural resources. They want to privatize whatever's in the country, basically just take whatever they possibly can, just like they've done in Greece. Because this is what the central bankers do. They come in, they destroy the economy, they destroy the country, and they take what they want. Now, the Kiev forces are continually violating the ceasefire. They violated it 27 times over 24 hours. They're not removing their 100mm cannons from the contact line. The heavy weaponry is staying, even though Poroshenko said they're going to remove it. And this is why the Minsk agreement talks fell apart between the contact groups. The OSC right now is reporting that there is no Russian military hardware crossing Ukraine's border. They're not seeing it whatsoever. Now, of course, in the past, they were saying there's a huge buildup. Just about 2 months ago, they were saying huge amounts of equipment is being brought into Ukraine. They're getting ready for another major offensive. And we see this is completely false, phony again. Why would Putin do this at this point? He could have just wiped out the Kiev forces back when they were battling. He didn't have to retreat and come up with the Minsk agreement. It was a waste of time then. This is all propaganda. Because what they're doing is they're getting ready for a major offensive. Now, a couple of reports ago, we had information that Kiev might use some type of dirty bomb or false flag event to start this war. And it seems they caught 4 smugglers in Ukraine moving uranium. And they were attempting to sell the material. Who the buyer is, we don't know. And we know Israel was fooling around with dirty bombs and exploding them in the desert. And they said the material seized was uranium-238, which can be used in a dirty bomb. Now, when a dirty bomb is used, radioactivity really doesn't go all over the place. It's located in that one small area. It goes boom, and that's about it. They want you to believe that it's going to float all over the place and everyone's going to get radioactivity, but that's not really what it is. It's more of a fear type of weapon, scare tactic. And what we're seeing right now is that it looks like this is some type of botched false flag where they were trying to move uranium, trying to get it to a certain location to create something. So it looked like the southeastern people, the Russian, Putin did something to start this war once again. And what we're seeing right now, it was completely botched. This doesn't mean they're not going to try it again. They will. Now, out in the UK, it looks like they are quietly expelling Russian diplomats from the country. The Russian diplomats, they have been forced out to return to Moscow with no immediate opportunity of returning to their duties in London. And the Russian embassy in London accused the Home Office and Foreign Office of fostering global tension and violating the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. The international treaty, by the way, which was implemented in 1964, lays out the framework for diplomatic relations between independent states. It outlines the privileges of diplomatic missions, which allow diplomats to carry out their duties free from fear of harassment, coercion by the host state. It also forms a legal foundation for diplomatic immunity, and it seems very quietly they are getting rid of all the Russian diplomats. Now, why is this? Is something being prepared and ready? I think this is what we're seeing right now. We see Russia is willing to take part in establishing an industrial zone in the new Suez Canal. And this is the project with Egypt. This is a 72-kilometer section inaugurated on Thursday in Egypt and will provide the fastest Europe-Asia shipping route. And we see right now that Russia and Egypt, they're signing a bilateral memorandum and a roadmap for implementation by December. Again, Russia, China, going around the world making economic deals. The United States government, central bankers going around the world provoking war. And this is what we see. And out in the South China Sea, what do we see now? We see John Kerry out there, and they're saying that, listen, the United States will not accept restrictions on freedom of navigation and overflight or other lawful uses of the sea in that area. Now, why is the United States in that area anyhow? If other nations in that region have a problem, they should be speaking up. Why is the United States provoking China like this at this point? And it seems like it's accelerating right now, just like we see it with Russia. Because they understand this system is completely falling apart. They understand that they can't hold this together much longer. And this is why we see a complete buildup of armed forces in the Middle East. We see the United States government central bankers provoking Russia in Ukraine, trying to get that offensive off the ground. We see now in the South China Sea, they're continually provoking China. And they're going to continue to do this, and we're going to see this escalate as time goes on. Now, the United States, especially those people who are under control from a foreign entity like Israel, who don't want this Iranian deal, who are trying to convince us if there's a peace deal, that means something bad will happen. No, if there's a peace deal, that means peace will happen. And what we're seeing right now is that, and I've said this before, this nuclear deal has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. Iran was never making a nuclear weapon. They use this as a front. The real deal is with the banking system, with their natural resources, and what they're going to use to sell it. And that's going to be the dollar. This was the real deal. But of course they have to make it look like this is all about nuclear weapons that they've been developing for 30 years and they never have. And right now, the Senate wants documentation from the IAEA, and they want to review the inspection with Iran. And the IAEA chief said, absolutely not. This is confidential. Every single country that we do business with, we have a confidentiality agreement, and nobody can see this. If we start giving this to different countries, well, guess what? They can't honor their commitment. He said, listen, if another country asks to see the United States inspections, we do not give it. The same goes with Iran, and he's absolutely right. There's no reason Congress needs to see this. It is between the IAEA and Iran, the IAEA and the United States and any other country who sign the NPT. And by the way, Israel, as we know, they have nuclear weapons. Back when the CIA declassified the 1987 document, it shows they have nuclear weapons. And they didn't sign the NPT, and they have no inspections. We see Russia is now going to help Saudi Arabia fight against terrorism. Now, of course, I see Russia is out there and they're saying, listen, we'll help you fight the Islamic State. We'll help you fight the Islamic State. Why do you think they're doing this at this point in time? Because they know the Islamic State is the proxy army for the coalition forces and the United States. And they're slowly trying to show everyone that, hey, we'll help out. We'll help you destroy them. And it kind of put the United States back. They're backed into a corner right now because what do they say? No. We don't need your help to fight them because they're really not terrorists. Because if they are terrorists that are affecting the world, then every nation should be involved. And why wouldn't you want their help? Because Russia's pointing out, well, you've been bombing them for a year. They expanded their territory. It's not working. So why don't you want our help? And the United States is trying to get out of this. And this might be why they're saying that Al-Qaeda might be the worst threat. Maybe they're thinking about dropping the Islamic State and letting Russia and other countries just destroy them and beefing up Al-Qaeda. Because they're backed into a corner at this point. We understand that the United States government is pushing the idea that Assad used chlorine gas. They want the UN, the chemical inspectors, to go in there and point the finger at Assad. They've been showing photos. They had the doctor showing people who got sick from the chlorine. Again, this is the aftermath. There's no linking evidence whatsoever. That's the problem. They can't produce any of that. It's like going to court. They show a dead body. They point to that person and said, yeah, he's the one who did it. Well, show me the evidence. Well, I just showed you the dead body. No. Where is the connection and where is the evidence that shows that what I did caused that? This is what they can't come up with. So Russia is saying, listen, yes, we should find out who is using chemical weapons. We will join you. We will help. And find out who actually used the chemical weapons in Syria. They're trying to, Russia, Putin, he's trying to calm the situation down just like he did back in 2013. And right now I see it all over the corporate media. Yes, Russia and the United States are going to join forces because what are you going to say? No, we don't want your help? It makes no sense. They're part of the UN. Now, we understand the United States uses drones a lot to go after the terrorists. And they use something called a signature strike. And this is where they use the SIM cards. And basically they triangulate the coordinations of where the people are with their mobile phones. And then they destroy those people. Now again, they don't know if those people are actually the terrorists. They're just honing in on a signal. And it has killed many, many people, many innocent people who never had to die. Just think about this. If there was a terrorist here in the United States and they were hiding out in an apartment building, and the United States decided to use a drone or a missile to hone in on that cell phone, and they knocked out the floor above and the floor below, killing 3 people. Is that satisfactory? No, it isn't. You just killed innocent lives. This is what they're doing in other countries. And they're saying it's okay. Well, do you think the people are looking at this saying, wow, thank God you got them. Oh, and you got my brother and my sister also. No, they're angry. They're looking at this and they're saying the United States is a terrorist. They come in and they kill innocent people. Now we see on the Syrian border, the Turkish forces have brought their tanks and vehicles, and they're getting ready for the offensive. They're getting prepared and ready to go. The U.S. also got permission from Turkey to fly manned flights into this area. Before it was unmanned, the drones. Now they're actually having the jets with people in them fly into Syria. So we're going to see this really ramp up. And right now, I discussed this before, Obama is basically looking at different ways to respond to China's hacking. Now, China is saying we are not responsible for this. And of course, as soon as the attacks came out, they pointed the finger. And let me just tell you, they have no clue who actually did this. You can't point the finger that quickly because an advanced actor bounces an attack off of many different servers. It's very difficult to find the originating server of where this actually came from. Or location, I should say. But as soon as it happens, they know exactly who it is. This tells you, nah, this was a false flag. As soon as Sony was hit, they knew like in a matter of minutes it was North Korea. Absolutely ridiculous. So we can see right now that Obama is looking for ways to respond to this. And we know, because the Pentagon came out, that any type of cyber attack is an act of war. And they're trying to play up on this. And you have to remember, when a cyber attack comes in, this is the best and most incredible type of false flag they can use. Because they don't have to prove anything. All they have to do is say it happened. Do you really know if it happened? All they have to do is say, yeah, this is what happened. And you have to believe us. So they just found the ultimate false flag to use. Now it seems like the government right now is prepping for something, maybe a nationwide blackout. And I mentioned this before, because we have to remember they're refurbishing NORAD headquarters, Cheyenne Mountain. We understand the federal government is basically stocking up on food, water, medicines, gasoline. The Treasury is keeping cash on hand. Well, I think what they're getting ready for is the economic collapse. I think they're getting ready for the system to fall apart. This is why the Treasury is keeping cash on hand. This is why NORAD is refurbishing Cheyenne Mountain. This is why they're getting ready, because they know they're going to turn off the lights in certain parts of the country. Not the whole country, certain parts, to make it look good. And other attacks will be physical in different cities. And these cyber attacks will definitely hit the financial institutions. And they're going to use this to convince us it's time to go to war. And this is the group and country that caused it. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.